Hey, welcome to Programming Swift. In this video I'm going to give you an introduction to Xcode, and I'm going to show you how to create our first Swift game. You're going to need to download Xcode 6, and at the time of this recording this is currently in beta, so you'll need an iOS developer account. However, by the end of the year this should be available for free on the App Store. What you need to do is open up Xcode. If this is the first time you've opened up Xcode, you'll get this project window. If you don't get this project window, try closing all of the open windows in Xcode. Quit Xcode and then reopen it. You can also go to File, New Project if you'd like to do it that way too. So we want to create a new Xcode project. We're going to say iOS application game, and we'll call this first game. And we want to make sure you pick language Swift, the game technology SpriteKit, and devices universal. We want to build both an iPhone and an iPad game. Click next here. And we need to save this project somewhere, so I'm just going to save it on my desktop. When we create a new project like this, Xcode is generating a new project for us based on a particular template. The benefit of this is that we already have a whole working project and we can build off of it. But the drawback is that there's a lot of files here that we didn't create, and so it can be tricky to understand what's going on. And there is a lot going on here in Xcode. There are so many files, there are so many buttons, there's window panes, everything, and I know it can be a little overwhelming at first. But don't worry, we're going to cover everything that you need to know in this series. So let's start small, but know that we're going to get to everything here eventually. The first thing that I want you to do is click the device button right here. This section lets us pick what device we're going to run our app on. So you can see we have iPhone 4S, iPhone 5, 5S, iPad 2, iPad Retina, and even resizable iPhone, resizable iPad. Pick iPhone 5S and click this play button. What's happening here is called compiling. Xcode is compiling our application, and it's turning our code into something the device can understand, and then it's loading that code onto the simulator. This right here is the iPhone simulator. It's like we're running an iPhone on our computer. Now, in the simulator, you can see it says, "Hello world." It's giving us some information down here, 60 frames per second. FPS stands for frames per second. And we can click around. And every time we click, a little spaceship is created, and that spaceship spins around. Let's stop the app. Let's go to iOS Simulator, and we'll do quit. And try something a little different. Here where it says iPhone 5S, pick iPad 2, click the play button again. Build succeeded. Our iOS simulator is now running on an iPad 2. So that's really cool. We can play the same game on both an iPhone and an iPad device. As I'm sure you know, the form factor and the screen size of iPhones versus iPads, they're very different, right? So we have to code our app to take that into account. And I'll show you how to do that at a later date. But for now, just celebrate that you've compiled and running your first app. Another way you can get out of the simulator is flip back over to Xcode, and you can click this stop button. Let's make some simple changes to this app. This pane right here is called the Project Navigator. And if you don't see the Project Navigator, then click this button right here to show it. Make sure it shows up. You can also go to View, Navigators, Show Project Navigator. We'll cover what all of the things in this navigator mean, but for now, I just want you to focus on the files that end in .swift. The .swift files are the files that hold all the code for our app. When we write Swift code, we'll put it in a file that ends with .swift. So click on the file called gamescene.swift right here. Our game is organized into different scenes. In the same way that a movie might have different scenes, our game will also have several scenes. In a simple game, you might have a scene for the menu, a scene for the gameplay, a scene for the cinematic sequences you want to show. In this project, we have what we're calling the game scene, which is basically the main stage where our game is being played. Take a look at these braces right here. In Swift, the braces have to always match. If you have an opening brace, you have to have a closing brace. We call anything between two matching braces a block. And in Xcode, you can actually find the matching brace by double-clicking on one. So here, if we double-click on this brace, you can see it highlights this whole block. If we double-click on this brace, it highlights this block. We double-click here, this block, etc. We can also hide a code block by clicking in the gutter right here. See this little arrow? See this little arrow right here? We can click on that and it will fold up this block. This is called folding your code, and it can be really helpful to hide some code so that way we can just focus on certain areas. If we fold up the blocks within the scene, you can see that we're left with three things that start with override func. We'll talk about what override means in a future video, but the func keyword means that we're creating a function. We've got three functions here: did move to view, touches began, and update. Let's talk about one each at a time. I want to point out something though. In this video, I'm not going to dive deep into every detail of the code. We're going to cover each topic in depth in later videos. If you don't feel comfortable with the syntax, or you don't really understand what all the objects are or how they interact with each other, don't worry. For now, I just want to give you the idea of what's going on. We'll dive deep into the specifics later. Let's start with did move to view. Did move to view is basically the function that's called to set up your scene. You can see we're saying, let my label equal sk label node with a font name chalk duster. We're setting the text to hello world. We're setting the font size. We're setting the position. And then we're saying add child my label. You might wonder what this sk stuff is everywhere. That sk stands for SpriteKit. So here you could read this as SpriteKit scene, or this is SpriteKit label node. SpriteKit is the library that we're using by Apple that is for creating 2D games. When you see these symbols, SK scene and SK label node, you can even just drop the SK in your mind and just think of this as, oh, this is scene and this is a label. We'll dive into the details of how to put your own objects into a scene later. For now, I just want you to change the label text to say something else, like maybe say, hello, Nate. And we'll save that file. And I want to point something else out. When you were trying to close these blocks, if you accidentally clicked over here and this blue tab showed up, that's called a breakpoint. And we're not going to talk about that now, but you don't want these for right now. They're really helpful when you're trying to find errors in your program, but for now they'll just get in the way. So if you accidentally created these blue tabs, then click on it and drag it out. Make sure that you don't have any blue tabs there. So now that we've changed the label text, click the play button. And actually, I want to switch back over to an iPhone 5. It works! It says, hello, Nate. That makes me so happy. So let's quit the simulator. And let's go back to looking at our game scene. Let's close did move to view and open up touches began. And in the next video, we'll talk about touches began and update, and we'll do a little introduction into sprites.